Hello. Today I am going to show you a way of keeping your local documents and data directories centralized in your own server. You will be able to access your documents and run applications from different PCs without having to worry about keeping data directories updated everywhere. This is not a discussion about backups. It is about what's usually referred as cloud storage. As always, I will be using the simplest and safest tool possible: SSH file system. If you're not familiar with SSHFS, I really encourage you to stick around and learn about it. You will be able to mount in your local computer directories located on a remote server over an SSH connection. It is pretty cool. This is why cloud services are useful. I use documents and different applications in my computer. If I bring my data to a second computer, it's a pain in the neck, having to keep the latest changes up to date throughout all my PCs. The obvious solution is to put all my stuff in one place. I am going to set up a server behind my home router, which is connected to the internet. And there's 3 ways I will be connecting to it. The first and safest is from within my local network. The second is from the internet, through Clearnet. And third, routing my traffic through the Tor network. My policy when accessing data is this: the fact that you can do something doesn't mean that you have to. It might sound cool to say that you share your files over Tor. But if I can access those files without having to touch the internet, I will. Also, if I'm outside my local network, and I'm not in a hurry, I will use Tor. Irrespective of how you access your data, you will have to make another decision that will make you balance security with convenience. Let me explain. When I store my data in the server, I will use SSHFS to mount these file systems in my local machine. All this will occur, more or less seamlessly and automatically in the background, depending on how you manage your SSH keys. From the most convenient way to the most secure. This is the plan for today. In part 1, I will set up a simple local cloud for a documents folder. Here you'll learn the basics of SSHFS. In part 2, I will make my documents folder accessible from the internet, over Clearnet. Up until now, the SSH authentication will have been handled with online keys, protected by a password. In part 3, I will share the documents folder over Tor, and use SSH keys stored on a Yubikey. In part 4, I will show you an easier way of mounting SSH file systems into our machine. In part 5, I will share the data directories of the Password Manager Pass and Electrum Wallet. And in part 6, I will write a few simple scripts to simplify and manage the access to my cloud, either through my local network, Clearnet, or through the Tor network. Let's start. I am inside my local network, and I've already set up a server with the Ubuntu Server OS. There's links in the descriptions that will show you how to do that. First, I will generate SSH keys to access the server. Protect your key with a password. Now that I can access through SSH, I will disable password authentication. Okay. So this is going to be my cloud server. I will start by creating a directory for storing my documents. I will log out and start moving stuff into my docs directory, through SSH. Now let's install the package, SSHFS, both in the server and in the client. The command df will show the file systems mounted in your computer. Please take a minute to familiarize yourself with this output. These are the file systems, and here are their mount points. Secure Shell File System, or SSHFS, is a file system capable of operating on files on a remote computer, using a secure shell login. In other words, any directory located in a remote machine I can SSH into, I can mount into my local machine using SSHFS. The syntax is straightforward. SSHFS. A remote directory you can access through SSH. A local mount point for the file system. And pass the SSH key as an option. I have mounted this remote directory into my local computer. This file is not on this PC. It is on the server. Let's copy one more file into my cloud. How about a video? I will SSH into the server and list the contents of the docs directory. The files are there. As you can see, you can manage your files from the GUI, pretty conveniently. The point of this being, of course, that you can do this from multiple computers, thus keeping your files centralized in a server you control, and is easy to back up. Before I go on, and to simplify things, I will add this host to the config file, in the SSH data directory. I will call it, cloud. OK. To disconnect the file system from your server, use the unmount command. Let's try mounting it back in, with the new host name that I just provided in the config file. You can also unmount the file system from the GUI. To access my server from the internet, I need to install a dynamic DNS client on the server. Please check the links below if you want to see me explain dynamic DNS, and get a free account from a DNS service provider. A few minutes ago I created such an account at dsec.io. I got the domain, docs.dyn.io. So let's SSH into the server and set up the dynamic DNS client. Again, below there are links where I explain the whole process. For allowing SSH connections from outside my local network, I need to add a rule to my server's firewall. Also, please make sure that your home router is port forwarding traffic to your server's IP address, to port 22. So let's try SSHing into the server, through Clearnet. It works. Let's add another entry into the SSH config file. And now, try mounting your documents into your PC, through Clearnet. Let's make sure that this is indeed the case. Log into your server, and follow the logs at var log auth.log. In the lower terminal window, I will SSH from my local network. Look at the logs. Now I will SSH from Clearnet. One more thing before I move on. As I said in the beginning, this is not going to be a discussion about backups. But notice how easy it is to back up your server. Now I am going to access my cloud server, over Tor. Not only that, I am also going to level up in terms of security, by using an SSH key, stored in an external hardware security device. A Yubikey. There's links below where you can learn about all this in detail. Notice that my Yubikey has two subkeys in it. One for authentication, and another one for encryption. The former I will use right now, to access my server through SSH. And the latter I will be using in part 5 of this video. This last line in my bash rc file, allows the SSH agent to talk to the GPG agent, thus allowing me to use my PGP subkey, for SSH authentication. I will now import my public key into my system, and trust it ultimately. Now I will derive the SSH key from my PGP subkey for authentication, and add it to the authorized keys in the server. Remember to check the videos linked in the description, if you are confused. Now I will install the Tor daemon in the server, and create a hidden service for SSH. You also have links in the description that discuss Tor hidden services. I already have Tor installed on my client computer. If you want to SSH over Tor, and you have written a config file in your SSH directory, you need to restrict access to it. Otherwise you will get an error. I will SSH into my server over Tor. Remember to precede every command by Tor socks or Torify if you want to route your internet traffic over the Tor network. It works. Let's disconnect and try mounting my documents. It took a while, but there they are. There's increased security and privacy when routing your traffic through the Tor network, instead of Clearnet. But you pay a cost in speed and reliability. The SSH connection might fail. As I said in the beginning, if you're not in a hurry, there's no reason to compromise. If you're outside your local network, I encourage you to use Tor by default, and fall back to Clearnet only if you have to. So now we can easily mount directories from our server, as file systems into any computer that we control. As you have seen, these entries in the config file make it very convenient. And in the next section, I will make it more convenient still. Before I do this, let me discuss something you may encounter if you're dealing with SSH keys stored both online, in your SSH data directory, and offline, on a hardware device. Even if you specify an identity file pointing to an SSH key, stored in your computer, the SSH agent will prioritize the use of any key stored on a hardware device. For example, let's SSH through my local network while having my Yubikey plugged in. I have authorized both keys in the server, so SSH chose the key stored in the Yubikey. To prove the point, I will unplug the Yubikey and try again. A second issue that you might encounter when dealing with multiple SSH keys, on and offline, is this. I will plug the Yubikey back in. The system can no longer detect the device. The easiest fix is unplugging it, and plugging it back in, again. But that might not always work in all operating systems. Restarting the PC SD smart card daemon should do the trick. OK. Back to SSHFS. Edit the file, fstab, in etc. And add the following line. First, the location of the directory in your remote server. The local mount point for the file system. fuse.sshfs. These 4 options, separated by commas. 0 and 0. Apply the changes by running the command, mount, with the flags, A and V. From now on, if you want to SSHFS the documents directory, you just type, mount, documents. And it's done. You disconnect by typing, unmount, documents. Pretty useful. Let's make sure that this method persists across sessions. Let's reboot. There's one limitation though. Notice that when I added my fstab line, I chose the local network host. That means that if I am outside my local network, I cannot use this method to connect to my server. So although this is an elegant solution, is not a versatile one. I will address this issue in part 6. Now I will use my server to store not only general purpose files, but data directories from specific applications. I will do this with the password manager, pass. Me choosing this application in particular is not important. You can choose whatever software you want. Linked below are videos about pass, in case you're interested. I am going to initialize pass with the fingerprint of my PGP master key, so I can use the subkey for encryption that I hold in my Yubikey. I will create a single entry in my password storage, so I have a data directory to work with. OK. So first I will copy the newly created pass data directory to my server, through SSH. I will keep the data directories of all the applications I choose to share, under this directory. next to my documents. Now that my past data directory is in the server, I will delete it in my local computer, and create it again manually so I have an existing mount point for SSHFS. I will do it over Clearnet, just for fun. Pass should work now. There you have it. The past data directory mounted, next to my document file system. Also mounted. I hope you realize how powerful this is, and how easy it is to set up, once you learn how to SSHFS. Now you can use Pass, from any computer inside or outside your local network, to access your passwords that are stored in your home server, encrypted. Provided of course, that you hold the keys for authentication, and for encryption. This is one of the reasons why having an external hardware security device is so useful. You only need the device itself, and a public key that you can store online, in one of dozens of PGP key servers. Okay. Now I'm going to make the past data directory mount automatically on boot. This means that once set up, I won't have to worry about any of this SSHFS business anymore. I will start my computer, and I will read and edit my passwords normally, without nothing in the user experience implying that my data directory is not in the hard drive of my local machine. There's a few ways of doing this, but all of them require a big compromise in terms of security. I need a passwordless SSH key. So I will disconnect my Yubikey, and create a new SSH key, without a password. I will add it to the authorized keys file. And add a new host in the SSH config file. I will be using it only inside my local network, for obvious reasons. So let's test it. I should be able to mount the data directory, without being prompted for a password. It works as expected. Now to make this happen on boot, I can simply write this command on my profile file, located at home. I will restart my computer. And it works. Doing this is not something that I would recommend, but it's interesting to try it out and explore the full range of possibilities. As always, extreme convenience usually compromises either security, or privacy. Okay. What I've done with Pass, now I will do with Electrum Wallet. Let's see if you can follow along, and understand everything that's going on. Got it? Now, before I move on, let me briefly discuss an issue that you should take into account if you're using a VPN. My data directories are mounted. I turn a VPN on, and everything works correctly. This will not be the case if I SSH into my server through Clearnet or over Tor. If I turn the VPN off, the SSH connection to the past data directory will be left hanging. And it will be difficult to get out of here. The SSH connection to the Electrum wallet data directory is unaffected. It's going over my local network. So be aware of this issue, because it might change your mind when coming up with best practices to deal with SSH file systems. In the next and final section, I will show you a cool and useful way of managing SSHFS, in a more granular manner, by using bash scripts. Okay. I will show you all this script stuff, but I will also improve our security. So first, I will get rid of this passwordless keys nonsense. And bring back my Yubikey. I will delete the entry in fstab. And remove the last host in my SSH config file. So this is how I'm gonna do it. I will create a script for mounting whatever directory I decide, for example, all my data directories at once, through my local network. Then another one for mounting them through Clearnet, and another for Tor. Check it out. Make the script executable. Now do the same for Clearnet and Tor. Now I will write 3 new scripts, to do the same for my documents directory. If you cannot run these scripts from anywhere in your machine, add this directory to the path environment variable. Before trying them out, I am going to create aliases to get rid of the extensions that I've just given them. I could have just not added an extension, but let's stick to best practices. It's good for teaching purposes as well. So this is how this works. If I want to have access to my files and I happen to be inside my local network, I type. Since I am only using SSH keys stored on my Yubikey, I only need to unlock the device once, and forget about it. I have turned off the touch policy for the key for authentication. So the cryptographic operations won't require physical touch of the key. It's a nice compromise. After all, the keys are behind a secure element. I will mount my data directories. I will unmount all directories. The workflow with these commands is really nice, and it gives me great control in terms of, what do I want to connect, over what network. Of course you can go as granular as you like, and write scripts for each data directory, or group them as you like. So my ideal scenario, is mounting all 3 folders through my local network. Everything is fast and secure. The Yubikey will flash intermittently every time it performs a cryptographic operation. Docs, Pass, and Electrum. Let's see how long it takes to mount the 2 data directories over Tor. Today is probably the worst day of the week for this, at the worst time of the day. So just for reference, this is a bad day for Tor, with a good fiber internet connection. Pass, and Electrum. A big difference. When Tor is unusable, unmount, and switch to Clearnet. Even behind a VPN, Clearnet will be fine for almost any application. Use these scripts. Keep your offline generated SSH keys in a hardware device. Always use a VPN when connecting over Clearnet. And you will be fine.